Welcome back to episode 10 of the Band Name Shut Up podcast, the world's only podcast. Today, I'm gonna lie to you, just like every other time. Are you an honest person? Do you value truth? Think hard. They're not the same question, but they're related. Do you tell white lies? Do you tell lies to avoid consequences or to get some privilege or benefit for yourself? We all like to tell ourselves that we value truth. I'm sure most people would, without even thinking about it, say, of course, I'm an honest person. But are you? I think I was either more honest when I was younger or less self-aware, and I was just lying to myself. If you wanted to make it a binary between truth and power, I don't know which one really comes up on top, but it's not 100-0, you know? And maybe in general, for the average person, what you pick depends on cultural values. So if you live in a culture that values truth, then you're more likely to choose truth. Maybe because the way the system is structured there, truth kind of is power. You're rewarded for being honest, and if someone catches you lying to try to get ahead, the punishment is so bad. Something like that. I don't think we live in a culture that values truth, though. But maybe I'm a schizoid. If you want to say something, somewhere in your mind, there's this calculation going on. Is it true? Is it useful? Valuable? Powerful? There's a really common argument technique or flaw or weapon. I read about it in Starslate Codex, but I don't think that dude invented it. It's called Motte and Bailey, if I'm pronouncing that right. In old-timey, ye-old medieval times, the Motte is a big tower in the middle of a field, and the Bailey is the field. So you go out into the field and you grow crops or raise livestock or do whatever. It's useful land. You're out there and you're making a profit. But it's not very defensible, so if you get attacked in your field, in your Bailey, you retreat to your tower, which is very defensible, and you just attack them from the tower with arrows until they give up and fuck off, and you go back out into the field. So the Motte is defensible, but not very profitable, and the field, the Bailey, is profitable, but not very defensible, and you just go back and forth depending on what you need for that situation. So when you're doing Motte and Bailey in any kind of debate or argument, you're making retarded claims out in your field that are not truthful and that, if really pressed in any kind of honest debate, is not defensible, but it's powerful, it's useful. You can make gains from it, you can grip some money out of it, or gain some political advantage, or get attention, win a petty argument, whatever you're trying to gain. If someone does attack you, you'd be pretty fucked staying there. So what you do is you retreat back to your tower and you put out some perfectly defensible, true statement, no one can disagree with it, and the trick is you try to convince them that your whole argument is what you're saying back here in the tower, and they're crazy to even come against you. So they say, oh, okay, fine, and they give up, and then you go back out and start doing retarded things again. The example that Starslate Codex was using was about feminism, or maybe just wokeness in general. I don't know. So basically you can be out in the field and you can be talking about man spreading and wage gap and kill all men, whatever you want to do. These are all pretty crazy statements or ideas, and these are things you can say to try to gain something in the culture war or in your personal grift or whatever you're after. But if someone attacks you, you just fall back to the tower and say, we just want equality for men and women. If you believe that, you're a feminist. And they say, oh, well, yeah, I guess by that definition, I'm a feminist. But what about the manspreading? And you go, no, what are you talking about? Our argument is we just want equality. And then they go back to the kill all men, because there's no gains to be made from the we just want equality argument. We're more or less equal already. If we weren't, that argument would still have something to gain, and it wouldn't have been relegated to the Motte position. This isn't something unique to feminism or wokeism or whatever, though. You can see this shit all day on the right, too. Why, black man kneel? Well, what's wrong with kneeling? The troops? Everyone fucking does it. Maybe I'm doing it without even realizing it. It seems to be something that just kind of comes naturally to us. We take truth and use it in this dishonest way as a weapon or a shield to enable our power grabs. It's a tag team match, and you tag in truth whenever you're losing. I like to frame all my arguments in terms of wrestling so that my audience can understand. Anyway, it does feel like power is valued over truth in our culture. There's a cost to speaking truth. You know that meme people say about comedians speaking truth to power? I feel like that's kind of a misunderstanding of what's happening, right? Because most comedians don't do that. Most comedians just adopt the mainstream narrative, and if you really dig into it, usually they're not really funny, they're just agreeing with the crowd. Because in order to speak truth to power, you must be powerful in your own right. To some degree, you must be untouchable if you want a wrong thing. You must be willing or able to pay the price for disagreeing with the powers that be. And there are examples of people who actually do this, right? Like Rogan or Jimmy Dore or Stone Toss, who actually had a comic recently kind of about this. And you can find a link to that by finding it yourself, you lazy faggot. If you're not self-sufficient, if you're not powerful in your own right, and you disagree with the power will say, okay, well now you can't have a job, or now you're banned off whatever platform you're using to make money, or now you are dead. In his latest special, Chappelle said something along the lines of, taking a man's livelihood is akin to killing him. You have to be self-sufficient enough that you can tolerate the mainstream systems dumping you. And it's not just like social media, right? Because we've seen examples of not just ban off Twitter, but banks won't do business with you, lose your job, just to avoid having the PR annoyance a company will fire you. They don't care about truth. They don't care if you were right. They don't care if you were wrong. They don't care if you'd even say the thing. If your child said some stupid shit on Facebook, it's just easier for HR to just dump you in the pursuit of power. I don't know, it seems kind of demoralizing. Maybe this is why people need some kind of man-in-the-sky cope if they're truth-focused autists. Because who's winning? Who's going to win in the end? There's this Mickey Mouse meme. It says, everything that we know and love is reducible to the absurd act of chemicals, and there is therefore no intrinsic value in this material universe. And Mickey responds, hypocrite that you are, for you trust the chemicals in your brain to tell you that they are chemicals. All knowledge is ultimately based on that which we cannot prove. Will you fight or will you perish like a dog? So you can be a fucking autist talking about, no, I will not lie, I will do the honorable thing, I will tell the truth, and that shit works out great in fairy tales. But your opponent is telling lies that are going to get you killed. And everyone will cheer, even the people who think they're honest and think they do the right thing. And one day the truth will come out, maybe because now it's convenient for the powerful, they need a regime change and it's a good way to discredit the old powers. Or maybe because the truth just does have a way of eventually getting out. But you're already dead, and they'll change the story and they'll rape you one last time by exploiting your memory for more power. And NPCs will cheer, and NPCs will forget, and NPCs will go along with it because that's just what people are doing. Because most people just rely on social proof for their moral compasses. That's my theory anyway. They don't know what to think, so they look around and see what everyone else thinks. And I'm not immune to this. Even when I'm sure I'm right, I still feel a little self-conscious if I look around and everyone disagrees with me. And I have to remind myself, if you really think you're right, and you do believe that everyone else is retarded, which I do, then you know you stick to your truth, right? And just hope it doesn't get bad enough that you get lynched. There's this Britbong rapper named Zuby, and honestly I've never heard his music, but I've seen a lot of his tweets, and he did this thing that was 20 popsicle stick jokes that I learned during the pandemic. And one of those 20 popsicle stick jokes was, most people would rather be in the majority than be right. And it kind of makes sense from an evolutionary basis, right? If you're a Neanderthal cave person, troglodyte, and you guys come up to a river and the people next to you go, ooh, look, crocodile. And you go, actually, that's an alligator. And then they get annoyed with you and throw you in the river. Maybe you could have considered just agreeing with the people around you so they'll keep accepting you in the tribe. But at least you're dying right. And the people who survived will be more certain that they're right than you were. They're going to walk away thinking, yep, that was definitely a crocodile. I don't know what kind of Homo erectus accent that was. I know it's a retarded example, but it really is the truth versus power conflict in our evolution. And power won. The power of survival. It's better to be wrong than to be alone, because a group of wrong people have better odds of surviving than a lone right person. If he's so smart, how come he's dead? So it makes sense that we would behave that way now. Maybe we could structure society to favor truth and to try to organize things in a way where truth is the most beneficial survival strategy. I don't know. I just know that most people choose company over truth and then resolve the cognitive dissonance with insufferable smugness. I see this in my own interactions, even with smart people I think are much smarter than me. I'll say some dissonant thing and they just mock me and they give me that smug smirk. And I'll still be thinking, oh, we're having a good faith discussion. That's cool. So I'll start offering studies and I'll link like, all right, so I read this study, and then this study is kind of weak, but this other one shows this, and they just stop caring. It's like, I don't care. They look at their phones, they go watch TV. They just want to dunk on you as someone who's not part of the in-group, but they're not actually trying to find truth, because truth is not a priority and it never was. It's power or safety or stability, some subset of being part of the powerful group. I specifically look up studies or sources to try to make an argument if I know I'm in the minority. And it's ultimately pointless because they don't care. People with the most steroided confidence have done zero research, and they're not going to listen to yours because you're crazy. Because you're saying A and everybody else is saying B, and they're going to hear what you say and they say, well, you're dumb and wrong because everybody's saying B. It's B. Everyone's saying it. If it were A, everyone would be saying it. The man on TV wouldn't lie to me. Trust the experts. And it's possible that when you're in the minority, you are actually wrong. If we were living in a sane world, I'd say it's even likely. But even in a mad world, maybe especially in a mad world, it's easy to get addicted to absolutely retarded conspiracy theories. And I see that tendency in myself sometimes. So you should watch out if you start getting into like Q bullshit or Red Deer or whatever. Because then you probably are wrong. But if you're not, you're still wrong. Because you may have truth, but they got power. They got everybody else. They don't need to do research, and that's why they haven't. And sure, maybe my research is retarded. I'm willing to go over it and admit where I'm wrong. I've had discussions where at the end of it I changed my mind, or decided I had to go back and re-examine some flaw in my argument or sources or whatever. Sometimes I find a claim I really want to believe, and after digging a bit I realize that it's bullshit, and it takes a conscious effort to do that. I'm willing to change my mind though. I'm even okay with you just attacking my arguments and never actually presenting any of your own. No ego on the line for you. This can involve my ideas, and that's fine. But people don't want to do even that, because then they'd eventually have to admit that they don't actually know what the fuck they're talking about. Their whole argument just boils down to, well, everyone around me has been saying this, so I figured, yeah, that must be right. And again, I do this plenty myself. On the rare occasion I find myself agreeing with the majority, I'm a turbo son of a bitch in debates. I smirk, I spout talking points, I refuse to elaborate, I walk away feeling like I won based on the power of my smugness. And we don't really think about it directly in these terms, but like in episode number, if it really comes down to it, if we shed all our ornaments and just go back to animal mode, those 10 wrong people will kill the one right guy, and now those 10 wrong people are right. So maybe there's no truth, there's just the consensus of lies. Everyone's saying it, and I don't want to be alone, so I'll say it too. How many people around you have to repeat a lie before it's just true? De facto truth. Like one thing I see, everyone at work thinks everyone else is woke. All the sociopath leaders who probably rape children in their off time, they'll make their speeches about whatever privilege, systemic this or that, etc. Just madness. We gotta do the right thing. And I generally just keep my head down, but sometimes I'll crack a joke here or there, and I've noticed that there's this trend where the secret conservatives or just non-woke people will see my sense of humor and they'll think, oh, maybe he's one of our allies, he's dog whistling. And then they'll try to kind of feel me out, see if I'm cool. I'm not, but some of them are cool to hang with because I can call them faggots. I just can't call them Christcocks. Everyone's a snowflake. Don't call me a snowflake though. But that's in private. In public, they just parrot the woke shit or they just keep their heads down and say nothing. That's what I do. We remain voiceless, we remain unheard, we keep getting paid. Anyone looking around sees me either agreeing or just not disagreeing. And regardless of what dissident thoughts people are thinking, the public dialogue appears to be unanimous. And if you're just going along with it, how many times you gotta repeat the lie before you believe it? After all, the difference between truth and falsehood is mere consensus. So in a way, powerful people can manufacture a consensus, not by just telling you what to think, right? That's really hard to do because if CEO, boss man in my company tells me you must kneel for, what's the dude's name? The guy who can't breathe. Herman Cain. You must kneel for Herman Cain. It's really easy for me to say, no, fuck you. So instead of just mandating you do this thing, you set up incentives. I remember getting into an argument once with some Christian guy because he made this claim that God never made you do anything, and I suggested that threatening eternity in hell to coerce people to act right by, your set of morals was akin to forcing. It seems to me like some kind of moral loophole so you can live with yourself if instead of directly forcing someone to do something, you instead threaten them with some negative consequence if they don't do the thing. Which is exactly what forcing someone to do something is, because that just comes down to violence if they don't cooperate, right? Something like that. Maybe this is a call forward for free will? I don't know how much I actually have to say about that. I'll have to take a few showers to think about it. Anyway, usually it's not that heavy-handed. Sometimes the sticks and carrots are so subtle that people just get a feeling that something's expected of them without anyone ever actually saying it outright. And the more subtle it is, the less people will realize that they've been coerced into this position. We'll resolve the cognitive dissonance by pretending that it was our own idea. Imagine you start working somewhere where working unpaid overtime is just the norm. No one ever told you that you had to, but you look around and everyone else is doing it. Do they look at you funny if you leave at the end of your shift on the dot, or are you just imagining it? One thing's for sure, you're sticking out. So you start doing it too, and maybe eventually you start thinking of it as normal. And you get another new hire, and now you're part of everyone else, subtly pressuring them into extra unpaid work. No one ever told you to work longer hours, and maybe you even think you decided to do this entirely on your own. But you are working extra unpaid hours, you fucking cuck. And the people who pressured you into doing it are your coworkers and yourself. And the people who benefit from it are the bean counter managers and sociopath child rapist executives. Interesting how that works out, where useful idiots volunteer to be foot soldiers for the powerful, whether they realize it or not. And so when you get upset about what you were made to do, it takes some extra thinking to get to who actually did it. It's a neat trick. And I know in this example there aren't that many levels of abstraction between the manipulator and the manipulated, so even some pretty brain-dead individuals could see that, but there's nothing that says that the situation can't be more complicated than that. Think about all the retards in Portland from the opposing tribes running around beating each other and pepper spraying each other and shit. Shooting each other even. And they're doing all this, being willing foot soldiers for people they've never even heard of. They just think, oh, the other useful idiots on the other side, they're the ones responsible for this. It's a neat trick. So you can manufacture consensus to some degree. And I guess if you can manufacture consensus, you can manufacture reality. Because we just look for the consensus of lies, and that's sane, that's truth, that's what we believe in. Because if most people agree on which lies are truth, then that is reality. It's the biologically defined universe. Perception plays an integral role in defining reality. We don't know what's real, we just know what we perceive to be real. Consciousness is directly involved in the construction of reality. The chemicals in your brain perish like a dog. Anyway, so if you're in some position of power and you can, by whatever means, control what the majority of people say, then you can control what the majority of people think. And you can control what reality is for the majority of people. Because with the cognitive dissonance, if you're repeating things or just going along with things, eventually it'll kind of seep into you. I've never read Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky and some other dude, but I feel like I'm kind of just retelling that story a little dumber. But how would you go about manufacturing this reality? Probably the most obvious thing would be just lying, the propaganda machine, fucking journalists, hijacking my obsession with Disney princesses. Because if you can capture institutions that are still generally trusted by most people, you got a small number of influential mouthpieces that'll just say what you want reality to be. You can start pushing misleading narratives or just outright lies.
Unfortunately, some members of the media
use their platforms
to push their own personal bias.
and agenda to control exactly what people think. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
You know, I heard recently that people are starting to get charged for lying to the FBI about Russian collusion, and the coverage for that is virtually non-existent compared to fucking years of endless just Russian collusion this and that all fucking day. A lot of people still believe that narrative, and they will for the rest of their lives. And the truth eventually comes out, but history was already written, and they're not going to make that much of an effort to let you know what the final, real, true story is. And even if they did, it doesn't matter, because the damage is done. At the time, you know, they got 6 months, a year, however long, a decade maybe. You got that much time to accomplish what you want with the lie, and then whoops, here's the real truth, but no point in undoing everything we did based on that lie, right? We're trying to move forward and build a better tomorrow. I don't know, it kind of seems like nobody needs to be told that the media is full of liars, just based on how obvious it is to me, or most people I know. But clearly it's still working, right? You still see millions of people who just see the man on TV and then go, yeah, that's reality. And another thing that you can't wholly blame on the media, but they do contribute to it. The pausing of science. And pausing, or paused, is a internet meme term for HIV positive, or just the infection of gay. I really do not help my point by using the most offensive terms possible, but I'm not gonna stop. Fuck you, nigger. But it's already an issue in the sciences where there are incentives for supporting certain ideas and not others. Publish or die. You can't get funding, you can't get grants if you're doing some taboo topics, right? So as far as the media is involved in this, when they need a scientific opinion, they find someone who will agree with what they want to be said. And they won't give a platform to anyone who disagrees, even if they are, in the end, objectively right. And if it gets to the point where you developed a following without using their platform, they'll try to smear you. You're too big to ignore at this point, so there'll be articles about some evil, petty thing you might have done once, and then strongly implied that this discredits whatever you're saying that doesn't agree with their narrative. And I know it's their platform, they can choose what they do with it, but it sure does seem wrong what they choose to do with it. Whatever. Journalists are evil. Journalist is synonymous with liar, but they are not solely responsible for the problems with science. And this shit wouldn't even work if we hadn't turned science into a religion. Fucking love science, bro. Other things they can do. There's a video by Luke Smith called Social Media, Social Control. Something like that. And it talks about Skinner boxes, which is invented by some psychologists who might be named Skinner. Or box. Probably one of the two. Basically, you make this box that has levers and buttons and dildos, I don't know. And each of the inputs is tied to some effect. Maybe you get a treat, maybe you get a shock, maybe you get raped in the butt. So you put this box down, you put a rat in it, and then you just fuck off for the rest of the day. You come back in the morning and the rat is trained. It's doing all the things you wanted it to do. It's pulling that lever all fucking day, but it's never pushing the rape button. So this is kind of like what I was talking about with the carrots and sticks. You don't have to tell anyone to do anything. And in fact, that would probably be less effective because direct orders are easier to oppose. You just have to set the incentives. For social media, there would be banning, quarantining, being discouraged in an algorithm or recommended, or apparently this happens. You can just have subscribers unsubscribed. Jimmy Dore claims that happened to him on YouTube when he was approaching 1 million subscribers and they really didn't want him to get up there, so they started just unsubscribing random people from his channel. And my initial reaction when I heard that was, no, they're not. But I do think Dore is an honest person, and YouTube is not. So, I guess if Jimmy Dore has 1 million subscribers, it's kind of a quantitative social proof. Wow, 1 million people listen to Mr. Jimmy. Everyone must be saying it. Anyway, once you set the incentives, you set the carrots and the sticks and the rape buttons, only the ideas you like can actually survive, and any casual observer is going to survey the landscape and only see what you allow to be said. Yeah, everybody's saying it. Don't push the rape button. They don't even have to be particularly subtle about it. To the point where people make jokes about it, it's so obvious. If you post a link to an article about some political scandal, you get banned, and they'll cite some random made-up rule that doesn't apply to every other political scandal. And I can't imagine everyone who just buys that is just retarded, right? Maybe with a tribal thing, like you value power over truth so much with so little self-awareness that you just immediately start convincing yourself that this makes sense, and if they disagree, then they're crazy conspiracy theorists, Nazis, fat people. Which is what you do. Anyone outside of your control, the dissidents or outsiders, they're so easy to dismiss. You just call them fat, or crazy, or conspiracy theorists. Pick your poison. Because the actual conspiracy here hijacks a part of human psychology. Most people value power over truth, whether they understand it or not, whether they'll admit it to themselves. If you set up the power incentives right, most people just fall in line. And whenever you make a statement like that, I think it's important to acknowledge that you are most people. I am most people. As much as I bloviate about truth and goodness or whatever the fuck I want to LARP about, I still fall in line, ultimately. And then you look at the people who won't fall in line, this minority, the people that ignore the levers and the shocks and the rapes and the treats. These are people who will take punishments or abandon rewards, maybe give up their careers and live on the fringes. They don't mind having 3.5 followers on YouTube. Although keep in mind that I say this, but I'm still trying to keep my job, right? I still try to pretend to be indoctrinated enough to fit in with society. I don't think I'm doing a great job of it because of, the autism, but I'm trying hard enough that I have not been fired. But you have this minority that will not fall in line, and it's so easy to dismiss them. Whatever they're saying, everyone is not saying it. They're crazy. You would have to be crazy to not do this thing that lets you keep your job. You would have to be crazy to not fit in and agree with us. We all know what the consensus is, our consensus of lies, and that's sane. So this guy who doesn't agree, not sane. Everyone is not saying it. Everyone is the arbiter of truth. Everyone believes what we tell them. We are the arbiters of truth. Anyone who says what we don't say is a liar. Misinformation. It's kind of funny, right? The most powerful liars get up on their podium and they tell us liars are the biggest threat to our society, and the liars are the people who don't agree with us. And with sufficient power, they're kind of right. If you're going to be Donald Duck about it, there's no truth, there's no intrinsic value. So whatever most people say is as good a test of truth as anything else, right? So all you need is a tool for getting most people to say whatever you say, and then you're always fucking right. And that seems wrong. Maybe because I am a truth cuck, or I like to tell myself that I'm a truth cuck. But I'm in no way immune to power incentives. On the surface, to anyone who's just looking at me from the outside, I'm just in line. I don't know if I can even fairly call myself a truth cuck. Maybe this is how we fall. Everyone privately resisting in their inner sanctum minds, and in the real world, just going along with it. It's really easy to say, especially after the fact. Privately in my head, I thought it was wrong to gas the Jews. But I didn't want to lose my job as a Jew gasser. It's good, honest work, my man. You can't reasonably expect me to give that up. I got a family to feed. Just following orders. I don't know. It's scary how far power facts have beaten back the truth. Or at least that's my perception. They control the mainstream sources of information. Air quotes, naturally. They tell you what the consensus of lies should be, and we call that truth. What's that saying? A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes. And if they get caught, no they didn't. The new lie lapsed the first truth. In a sane world, truth would win in the long term because your credibility is gone after the first time you get caught in a lie. But people are so captured in fictional realities that the system, or whoever deserves blame for this, can get caught in a blatant lie and simply change the story. We've always been at war with Eurasia, and people just go along with it. And if you question it, you're the crazy person. How can truth win in a world where people don't care about what's true? People have shit going on in their lives, so they're not questioning it. They don't have the capacity and time or mental effort or care or whatever. If you're the type of person who would look for a source they don't control, you're a crazy. Which is inaccurate. It's better to say that you're a loser. You have nothing going on in your life, so you find the time to look into stories and discover what they're lying about, or what they're not telling you. Every fucking headline about aliens, and my first thought is, what are they distracting us from? Follow the silence. But if you mention that you do that though, people give you that smug smirk at best, or they get that kind of scared look like you might be psychotic. It's really fucking weird. I find I can't talk to people anymore because the only way you can talk to someone is 100% agreeing with them and chanting in unison. It's like the time for talking is over. That's how it feels. But I don't know what time it is then. You might think there's some implication in that, but it's not like I'm gonna do shit in Minecraft just like everyone else. I'll keep my head down, I'll focus on my own shit, I'll try to survive whatever happens. In the meantime, I guess I'd try being a truth cuck pseudo-intellectual who thinks in such abstractions that you have to admit that there's no truth and nothing matters, and all the bad faith parafags can fill the void you left in your retreat with whatever bullshit they want. It's principled losing, really. How can a truth win? I want to believe truth cucks win in the end, like in all my fairy tales, but is that realistic? I can't tell if I'm just demoralized by a psyop or if shit is really that bad. I know it sounds like I'm just demoralized. And then Mickey yells at you and asks if you'll fight or perish like a dog. And I don't know about you, but I'm gonna perish like a dog. Fucking sucks, man. I guess absolute truth is irrelevant, and maybe we can never know it, so we live in this nightmare world where you either let monsters dictate your truth or you have to take focus off the shit you actually care about to fight, which is fucking gay. I got shit I want to do. I don't even fucking know how you would fight. Never mind that I'm probably too cowardly to actually risk anything for it. And if you want to fight, do we have to give up the moral high ground and use dishonest means to win the battle? Imagine the vile irony of using lies to protect the truth, especially if it turns out that both sides think they're doing that, because I'm sure the powerful liars right now, to some degree, think they're doing the right thing, whatever means necessary. There's the scene in Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I will just insert now.
But this isn't about you. This is about the world.
But the monks taught me that I had to detach myself from the world so my spirit could be free.
Many great and wise air nomads have detached themselves and achieved spiritual enlightenment. But the Avatar can never do it. Because your sole duty is to the world. Here is my wisdom for you. Selfless duty calls you to sacrifice your own spiritual needs and do whatever it takes to protect the world.
It was a remarkably adult topic for a children's cartoon, though and then they did find some childish workarounds so he didn't have to kill. But what his past lives were telling him, especially the other air nomad, sometimes you have to sacrifice your own spiritual needs for the greater good. Not what he wanted to hear, not what I wanted to hear. Maybe I'm too childish to actually take part in this battle. I just want to take their lie bending away with turtle magic. Why can't I just do that? I think this one definitely made top 10 craziest episodes.